Let's face it, parenting is the most important job on earth. Every day presents a stack of different challenges, and more often than not, the answer is outside of the box. On this podcast, we will offer proven strategies, interview pioneers in education, give insights into how to be successful parents, and even share our imperfect experiences of being parents ourselves. We're all in on this journey, and we will span the globe to find out what is working and who has the answers. This is the Sound Foundations for Parenting podcast. Here are your hosts, Darren McCarthy and Brian Powers.
Welcome to the Sound Foundations for Parenting podcast. I'm Brian Powers.
And I'm Darren McCarthy.
And we are coming to you in a new year. Happy New Year, Darren.
Hey, Happy New Year. 2020 for you. Are you real?
It's a here, whether we like it or not.
I just did the math. My daughter's going to graduate in 2029.
I look at that math sometime and I'm like, I just don't want to think about it. I really don't. I want to.
Yeah, I think they're going to go to school in rockets.
Yeah. Or I was just looking at our toy room and how sometimes the toy room is overwhelming before, after, and during their playtime. And it's like, yeah, but in like 5 or 6 short years, none of this will be here.
Yeah, you have to really appreciate that, right?
Yeah, I try. That's one of my things in the new year is to appreciate the time we're in. And and not get overwhelmed like we were talking about before.
That's a perfect example. Like, you're staring at all the toys, wondering where the time went, trying to get all organized, and it kind of, that whole process led me to a thought that during the holidays we do a lot of searching. We do a lot of soul searching. We do a lot of searching for different strategies to address different goals. And this year I did a lot of searching for what else was out there and what other guests we can explore, and met some really great people through LinkedIn, as a matter of fact. And what you realize is that there's so many people doing so many great things, and there's so much available that for a parent, it just really becomes overwhelming. Like, where do I start? Which toy do we play with first? Which box do we put away first? And which goal do we address? And what matter? And that matters because where you spend your time and money can either be down the right path or the wrong. And if it's the wrong path, it leads to frustration and time, and a loss of time and loss of money and loss of confidence, right? And I know you've had that personal experience.
Yeah, I've done it with, everybody's spent money on self-help stuff, and or you look at stuff to help parenting your kids, all of that. And it's like, it can be so overwhelming. Where do you start? We talk about it all the time. How do you eat the elephant? But it's one bite at a time. And sometimes it's just, going after it and picking one piece and starting there.
Well, that was, I had a great conversation with a gentleman out of London that everybody will have a chance to meet in the next couple of weeks. And he's more about, de-stress and calming the body and calming the mind and getting yourself really kind of regulated. And truthfully, it goes back to oxygen on yourself first and taking care of yourself first. And as parents, it's probably the most difficult thing we could possibly do is think, well, I've got to put myself before my child. You're not really doing that. You're putting yourself first so that you could be there, present for your child and physically and emotionally and everything else. And be
the best version of yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. We talked about that a little bit with Gail Moores, in months past, but this is a little bit more kind of getting that in order to decide what path you want to get to. You have to decide. You have to be present, right? You have to be in that moment where you make that decision, because a lot of us are just kind of pushing ourselves through the path, and then suddenly we look back and go, oh, well, maybe that was the wrong one.
Sure.
Versus taking the time, really calming down, and then kind of considering the situation. I think I have this scenario right now where I'm getting shots for my allergies,
Yeah.
It's finally time for a lot of time, a lot of time to, you say, put 20 something years of allergies. I'm finally doing something about it, but hey, we're all a work in progress.
To start somewhere.
Yep. And so what happens is you get the little shot, which is not really a shot, but, and then you have to sit there for a half an hour. And the first time I did this, I was like, I have to sit here for a half an hour, and do what? Well, what do I have to do something, right? I mean, I have to answer emails, take calls. I got to do something. And then I realized, oh, wait a minute, I just was given a half an hour. And I'm not going to sit there and do yoga and sit in the middle of the room and do that, but I could certainly put my mind at ease.
Yeah. And
start, get yourself organized from the inside out in order to make those clear decisions. And, in Gail Moyer's parenting training, she highlights how we learn over what we learn. And that's a vital concept, how we learn versus what we learn, because we spend a lot of time and a lot of effort on what we learn, which leads to tutoring and leads to curriculum and so on and so forth. Not that that's bad, because that's very necessary. But if you're going down that path and you didn't work on how you learn, you're going to head down the wrong path for way too long and cost yourself way too much. What do you think?
Yeah, look, what we're talking about is applicable everywhere. I find myself sometimes workday or even on the weekend, if you don't figure out a plan and put things in priority, you're just going to find yourself spinning your tires. So I turn to, listing things out. What do we need to knock off first? And that can be applicable everywhere, like we're saying here. And it's even, when it comes to deciding on training and self-help and all that kind of stuff, I'm going to take on these videos, this book first, and then see where it takes me from there. And if it's the right investment, great. But sometimes it comes down to chance. You got to make sure that you got to sometimes use things and go through things to figure out if they're for you. And you usually do that pretty quick.
Right. And it starts with knowing, kind of learning and understanding, or the willingness to learn and understand and develop a mindset that's more child development oriented. So an interesting thing happened recently where I was given a child's assessment to take a look at. And what happens when these assessments come your way is, as a parent, you get super emotional because your child is on a page with numbers, and the numbers can be really confusing. I know you've seen this firsthand.
Sure.
And then you finally get through all those numbers, and then in the end that you read the review and suggestions of what to do. And which is great in the sense that you're finally getting some direction. But if you had an occupational therapist assessment versus a speech path assessment versus an educational therapist assessment, you're gonna get three different perspectives on where to start.
Sure.
And that's why child development is so essential. I mean, it always goes back to that: the physical first, the social emotional second, and the cognitive last. And as we're talking to different guests, I think it's important for us to highlight kind of why we're bringing them on, and at what point it's pertinent. So for example, I just connected with someone who's got a strong background in creative writing, and has a whole book series, and kind of wants to talk to parents about exploring that whole modality. But the truth of the matter is, that's a very specific place where a child has to be developmentally in order to take creativity and writing to another level.
Sure.
Versus a parent that has a child that has trouble kind of holding the pencil correctly. Right. So, and that's more of an occupational therapist or more of a physical kind of a challenge versus the other one, which is more of a creativity kind of a cerebral challenge. So it's our job to kind of tell the parent, hey, this is right for these people. This is right for this scenario at this time.
Yep.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, because that will prevent some of the overwhelming feelings from happening. Because it'll
in other words, you don't have to worry about that now. You can worry about this, don't worry about that.
Yep. Put it on the shelf for later.
Right. And part of that, I think part of that conversation is that you, as a parent, you have to learn to observe, but you also have to kind of understand where the child is. And sometimes they're not where you want them to be, but they may be exactly where they need to be developmentally. And sometimes they're where you do want them to be, but they actually could be pushed a little bit further, so to speak.
Sure. Just like us. Yeah. But it's hard to take that step back when you're living in the moment. So
no doubt about it.
That's
no doubt about it. So to come full circle on that whole thought process, you have to be present in the moment to observe your child in what they're doing in order to help them reach the goals they need to reach.
Agreed.
Right. It starts with you. You need to breathe, be present, be there while these things are going on. Otherwise, you're not only gonna miss all this stuff from an emotional perspective, but you're gonna miss things that you need to see.
Yep.
And you might be looking for a creativity, a creative writing class, because your child needs something to do, so to speak, and they may not be holding the pencil right.
Yeah.
And those are two totally different paths.
Correct.
One leads to the other, but it's not the same, it's not the same way to get there.
True. Yep. No, look, I think your new friend who specializes in stress is going to become my new friend. But I'm looking forward to that conversation. And I'll remind folks that are listening, you need to subscribe so that you get the updates when we have new episodes and get updates from us. Subscribe, give us your email address, and that will keep you in the know as we head into this new year and we bring new guests on with new products and new help for you and your family. So that being said, I think this was a good one-on-one talk between the two of us to kind of kick off the new year. I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. We've got some folks coming up. We're starting to go worldwide here. We got someone coming up from London, another special guest coming from Australia, and then we're going to come full circle and we're going to be in Georgia. So loving the podcast, loving the feedback. Absolutely would love to get some input from parents on the Facebook page at Sound Foundations for Learning, for Parenting, my fault, and or learning, either way, and get that feedback, and also and can keep contributing to what you would like to hear and who would you like us to connect with. Fantastic.
Yeah, in the show notes there'll be links to all of our social channels, so you can follow us and make sure whatever podcast outlet you're utilizing, make sure you subscribe to the podcast so that you get notifications when there are new episodes. And then also visit our website, soundfoundationsforparenting.net, and sign up to receive our email updates. Plenty of good information. We will not waste your time. And we're looking forward to a jam-packed 2020.
Great stuff, Bryce. See you next time.
All right. Thanks, Darren.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Sound Foundations for Parenting podcast with your hosts, Darren and Brian. Find them on social media at Sound Foundations for Parenting. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please leave a review and subscribe. And we'll catch you next time on the Sound Foundations for Parenting podcast.